Everyone. Going to see if a few more participants join. It's 10 o'clock on Tuesday, June 30th. Welcome to the Boulevard Realty Weekly Update. I'm going to give it just a minute or so longer to see if a few more people log on. And we're getting there. Okay, this being June 30th, it is the midway point of 2020, and I can only say, as I've been talking about the half glass full, half glass open, I'm sure as hell glad the year's half over. Let's hope the next half is better than the first half. I'm sure, along like most of you, you're ready for 2020 to be history and we can move forward. But we're just in the middle of it. And I'm always intrigued by these terms and Webster's dictionary, and my term today is virus fatigue. I think we all have virus fatigue, but I mean, it's important to remember that we're not done yet. And I truly believe we've got a long haul in front of us. So today's presentation is a snapshot of a number of different topics, and I think I'll just kind of jump right into it here. I'm going to try and share my screen, which I am not excellent at all of this, you understand. So now I have to find where my stuff went. I believe it's here. Aaron, are we doing good? Can everyone see this? I hope so.
You're good.
Okay, excellent. Very good. So the biggest news I think we had, of course, we've all been watching the spike back into the large number of cases in our city, of course, the state. Many states are experiencing the exact same thing. We would have thought we would have been able to keep up the decline, but as we open back up the economy, of course, the number of cases has been escalating. And with that, we're having to take extra precautions. And those of us at Boulevard Realty are taking extreme precautions. I'm limiting the I'm considering real estate to be essential, okay? And I believe we should be able to conduct essential business, but essential is not the same thing as just recreational time at the office or just doing something for the fun of it. So I'm asking my agents to practice extreme caution when practicing real estate. That means only come to the office if it's absolutely necessary. Essential, if it's essential to come and do it, do it. And if you could possibly do it another way, delay doing it, do it some other time or do it some other way. That's what we're asking you to do. And with that, it goes to open houses. Public open houses are where we put up a sign and we put it out on the internet and people can randomly come through. And that is one way to show and sell houses. But I don't know that in the middle of a pandemic with spiking cases, that's the best procedure to go through. So we, like many other brokerages, are moving to a different format. Virtual open houses, which are really where the agent goes online, either through HAR.com or some other format, YouTube videos, Facebook Live, whatever it is that they would like, and do a little video showcasing the homes that we do want to sell and allowing people to see them, through the video or through the internet, and then to make appointments. So you still can have a 2-hour window of an open house. You do the virtual tour from 2 to 2:20. You encourage people to text or call and then schedule appointments at 2:40, one at 3 o'clock, one at 3:20, one at 3:40, another one at 4 o'clock. That way, we're limiting the exposure of people to get in contact with other people, even if that contact really was just congregating out in the front of the house. They may or may not have congregated at the kitchen island, but this ensures the safety and security of everyone. The homeowner selling a house, the real estate agent who we care utmost about, and every consumer and community member. It's not just encouraging people to be out on a bicycle and walk through a house. And so we're practicing a more restrained form of broker open houses, and I encourage other real estate agents to follow suit, and hopefully our industry will do the right thing and consider a form of showing to be essential, and that would require the making of appointments. I think that's the most responsible thing to do until we can get the pandemic under more control. So for the extended period of time, until cases are declining for 14 days straight, we seem to get the illnesses and the hospital rates back to a more manageable number. This is the procedure that we're going to use for an extended period of time. So if you need more explanation, please get with your agent or reach out to me, and I'm happy to explain it a little bit more. A couple of deadlines and things. This being June 30th, this is the last day for Paycheck Protection Program. There's still 130, 140, 150 billion dollars left for businesses that have not yet taken advantage of this. They have freed up and made it a little easier than it was originally. And I encourage any small business that has not yet taken advantage of this. For those of us that did take advantage of it, we need the rest of you to take advantage of this so that we might have another program in the future. This money, which we had spent in the months of April and May to pay for our employees who were not really able to work very much. If we go back into some steep shelter in place, I'd like to see the program come back, especially for the restaurants and bars and the small businesses that have not been able to open back to their fully functioning. But I'm not sure that, politically we'll get more money for this if we don't at least use up this 134 billion that they've allocated for this purpose. So I encourage everyone to take advantage of that. We're still seeing some positive headlines in real estate. And I've mentioned many times, I believe sometimes the real estate headlines are 4 to 6 weeks behind, which are often misleading. But I think for much of the country, it is better than it had been the previous 3 months. I think for Houston, we're still seeing a pretty remarkable movement in certain price points and in certain areas. Those price points really are probably the lower end price points than the very highest end. We're seeing continuing struggling of showings and selling and getting under contract of the highest priced homes in particular neighborhoods, but still the number of transactions is good, the number of mortgages is good, the number of forbearance is down, a number of positive headlines that I think will make good. You see nationally things going at least on a more positive outlook with regards to real estate. Seems to be not in a free fall, on some firm footing or whatever. And of course, all things are a little bit local. We're seeing, we need, my industry, real estate in Houston, Texas, needs stability in oil prices. And it's been more stable than it had been in the previous couple of months. I don't want to be insensitive. I don't think anyone can really make any money at $38 a barrel. But all I do know is that $38 a barrel is better than $28 a barrel or $12 a barrel. So if we could stay stable, if we could inch our way up, as we open back up the economy, use more airlines. You're seeing on your Facebook feed more and more people going on a vacation, flying to Montana, flying to New York, flying to Mexico. That's the use of oil. Even if we're not flying and you're driving to Yellowstone or you're driving to Sedona, Arizona, you're using more gasoline, which is good for Houston, Texas. Believe me, I am happy to pay $3 for a gallon of gas in order to have stability and better oil prices. So you're seeing a more stable market. I hope that it goes up more. These are the summer months. Typically people travel more than they do when kids are in school. So, I'm looking for oil prices to hopefully inch their way up, higher than 40 as we get into these summer months, which would be good for real estate. A significant drop in oil incites fear of uncertainty for the Houston market. So we're seeing some stability there. This is a little chart we did of people who are making reservations for restaurants. And more restaurants are now making reservations than ever before. Remember, this is the first time in history you get a cultivar that has reservations available. But you're seeing that when we had opened up a little bit more, the decline compared what was getting better, but now you're still seeing a pretty steep decline. People are heeding the warnings and not necessarily going out to dinner and making reservations and continuing to stay at home. So as you see, they're off 70% from a year ago, even though you have 5 times more restaurants available to make reservations. So that's a pretty significant decline and just a part of our society. But if you look at a graph, this is a graph called Safe Graph, and it's taking analytics of people's cell phones information about what percentage of people are staying home versus leaving. And the reality of it is only about 8% of Harris County residents are significantly limiting their activity compared to before the pandemic. I mean, that's a pretty small number of elderly or infirmed or people who are overly concerned. Doesn't mean that we're all not more concerned, but we're certainly not vastly just staying at home. Doesn't mean maybe we're out at Memorial Park walking or Herman Park walking, but compared to other areas of the country, we are certainly out and about more than others. And that Safe Graph, you can just Google it, is pretty interesting information if you just want to see what's going on. Real estate will be totally determined by the amount of demand versus inventory, and we're continuing to see on a national level and the state level, they stay in check. Of course, the inventory is going up today compared to April 1st because the fear is slightly decreased. People are opening up more. And if you have to shelter in place, there's no real ability to leave if there's a showing. So the housing stock that would have normally come online in March in the spring selling season waited to come online in the 1st of June. And we saw a fair amount of increase in inventory in June, which was to be expected. I mean, I myself as a realtor wasn't going to list something in the middle of, the pandemic. I wanted to wait till things were starting to open up a little bit. But nationally, state-wise, locally, we still are significantly below the inventory levels of where we were a year ago at this particular time. So if things remain as I expect, relatively stable amount of inventory to demand, then I think the pricing is going to be fine. I don't see any significant pricing drops except for where you're really still talking about the very highest price points in any particular neighborhood. So viewings continue to be up compared to a year ago. This is the weekly stats. While this 32,000 number of views is down from 4 or 5 weeks ago when people tended just to be at home and had nothing but to look at HAR.com, they are still up significantly from a year ago. So you're getting more views per listing, even though we have fewer listings really than we had 1 year ago. The number of views on HAR.com continue to shine a light that it is more positive than you might think. I mean, you have to start looking at a house before you can actually go and see it, before you can go and buy it. So I think this is a pretty good, just brief indication that there is still interest in the housing market. But I am seeing, of course, things in our immediate area in the Heights. The comfort level is $400,000 or $500,000 to about 900, maybe $1 million. You start getting even to $1.1 million. There is more inventory than there have been transactions. Certainly at the higher end, above $1.5 million, it has certainly been slower. We have added a fair number of houses, and the number of showings really, in my opinion, have decreased. So you have more houses to look at and fewer showings. If we used to have 20, this is the market, if there were 20 houses in the Heights over 1.5 million, now you have 50 and you're still showing about the same or not, maybe even slightly lower than you did before. So you only saw out of the 50 houses in the last 2 weeks, really only 2 got under contract. And I can tell as I probably have 10 listings over $1.1 million in Area 9, and many of them received no showing in the last 7 days or even 10 days. They got some fair activity at open houses a week ago when we had the public open houses, but I didn't see much showing in the high-end market here in the Heights. And I look back at Memorial and Westview and Montrose and some of those areas, I think the same things are statistically happening. Although I do have a fair number of clients at the $400,000, $450,000, $600,000 price range, and damn it, we get our butt kicked every week. Houses continue to get under contract in those price points all around the city. There seems to be a pretty good trend of people in that price point being very comfortable and moving forward. And so it's been kind of frustrating. My dear darling ginger daughter has not had any ability to get a house. We're going to look at another one today at 3:15. Maybe this is the day. I'm not sure, but it's been fairly frustrating. A, there hasn't been much inventory in those price points, and B, when something nice comes on, there's still are multiple offers in those price points, especially for nicely remodeled houses in good locations and things. So other things happening, I mean, just being respectful of the period we are in history, which is an unprecedented time. We have changed at HAR.com the word master bedroom and master bath to primary bedroom and primary bath. Could be called owner's retreat, could be called any number of other things, but just, trying to be respectful about all aspects of our society. And this was just one more effort that we could do to try to neutralize anything. And of course, there has been racism and there has been discrimination in real estate. And we've talked about it in the firm for over a year now, not just over Black versus white, but our impression. If you're an older agent, do you treat younger people with the same level of respect? If you don't have a tattoo, do you treat someone with a whole slew of tattoos on all their arms the same? Do you treat people of different nationalities different from yourself? So there's all kinds of inherent discrimination, and we just need to be cognizant of it, recognize inequity, and just try to do our best to be fair and equitable with every individual. I have to be honest, my average client is wealthier than the average American today, and they do not dress up, they are not pretentious, they do not drive fancy cars, the doctors wear scrubs, and most of my high-end clients wear shorts and a t-shirt to go look at houses. They don't need to be in three-piece suits or Armani in order to buy a house these days. So people you would think would never be ones that would buy a house often are the ones that do buy it. So just, keep that in mind when we're talking about these sort of things. Today it started, I believe, yesterday, Election Day. I encourage everyone to vote, to spread out through social distancing on your way to vote so that we don't have mass long lines on Election Day. But I encourage you to get out. There are choices in the Republican primary and the Democratic primary that will influence our state, certainly the Senate race and certainly these congressional races. But there are local state representative races and state board of education choices that are going to make a difference over the next 4 years. So I encourage you to go out and vote as safely as possible. Other than that, I'm going to stop sharing and just come back to that. I mean, I think that what we're seeing is a push. The movement that would have been in March and April and May has moved over to June. I think if you're frustrated as a seller because a fair amount of listings came on, I do not think you're going to see the exact same thing. There will not be, and I'll just gauge and we'll be able to test what I'm having to say. There won't be the same number of listings in Area 9 that came on in June come on in July. You're still going to see demand for selling, and people are still going to buy homes in July, because I still think for many people this is the best time to go and buy one before you get back into the school season of August, whenever that's going to be. And because of some inherent fear of flu season in the fall, I believe you're still going to see a fair amount of purchase activity for June, July, and August, which would have been higher than it would have been without a pandemic. But I don't think you're going to see, I just can't see the amount of inventory continuing to rise. It's just, if you wanted to sell a house, this is the time you were going to go put it on. You might have waited during April, May, and June, but there's no reason for you to wait much longer. So I think you're going to see a little, purchases rise, inventory decline, showings continue to be the same, and it's at some point going to create some additional stress. But overall, what this is doing is keeping a stable market where it's not steep declines or not steep inclines. No one really wins if the seller can stick it to the buyer. No one really wins if the buyer is taking advantage of the selling community. And so I think what is best is a certain amount of just stability. I mean, it's better if the price of peach is the same at Kroger and HEB and Whole Foods. If Whole Foods is the only one with the peach, and the damn price of the peach goes up. So I think you're seeing a more stable market. I think people have to be realistic. If you didn't get under contract in the last couple of weeks, could be that maybe that was just more inventory. Dropping the price, and I've had an example. I dropped the price of one of my listings $100,000, and it made absolutely no difference whatsoever. If there wasn't a buyer in the marketplace, lowering the price didn't stimulate someone who was on the fence. You have to have a buyer in those price range, and buyers at the high-end price range are probably a little more conservative than they would have otherwise been. So that's not the only mechanism in order to stimulate activity. I mean, I do think you've got to freshen things up. We're talking about more videos, more interactive forms of media, demonstrating not just a photo of a kitchen, but showing the kitchen really in action. And I mentioned yesterday to my staff meeting, doing a virtual tour of what was my 839 Arlington really allowed me, as I'm describing everything about that house on an individual basis, room by room by room, you notice so many more things than just with a photograph. A photograph is a shot in time. A video is giving you this opportunity to really highlight different things, lighting in a different manner, storage in a different manner. You're able to open the cabinets in the pantry and see different shelving organizations. And it's just, there's so much more information that can be given. Now, you can't be long and drawn out. People, you know, you're trying to pique people's interest and actually get them in the house. That is the objective here. But I do think it's this unique opportunity, and I think it's not going to be lost. I'm telling my agents, get comfortable being in front of a video camera. You don't have to be perfect. Your hair can be messed up. You can have, you know, toys in the background. It doesn't really make any difference, because I think it makes it more real. I'm enjoying these broadcasts and these newscasters broadcasting at home, and their kids are, you know, shouting out in the background. At least it's more real than the fake sky. I don't believe many photographs anymore. I don't believe the sky is that blue or the grass is that green. And I'm always questioning if they, you know, photoshopped out the sewage treatment plant or the power lines, you know. And so when you're in a virtual reality tour, you're seeing things as they are. And maybe they're not perfect, but I think some realism is probably needed into our industry at the moment. Those realtors that use their photo from 25 years ago are not doing themselves a favor at all, I can assure you. Reality is going to kick in at some particular point. So I think the market is better than you would have thought. The glass, I believe, continues to remain half full. I think we have to be diligent in being safe and secure, hoping that we take care of the health and safety of our citizens and community. But we are going to continue to show houses and sell houses. People more and more are recognizing if where they're at is not satisfactory, this is probably the time to go do something about it. If you're unhappy sheltering in place, the reality of it is you probably are going to get ample opportunity to shelter in place again over the next 12 months. And so this is the time, if you need a better yard or another room for a home office or a little more space to spread out, or you feel lonely and you don't, and isolated, and you want to feel more connected and be able to sit on your porch and socially distance, wave to people and interact with people out on the street and sidewalk, this is the time to do it. This is what I think is probably one of the better times to go and change where you live. So it's a balanced market out there. You're not going to see spikes or extremes, I don't think, in any way over the next couple of months. But I think this is probably a good time, if you're thinking about making a move, to go and do so. So I hope that answered some questions. I'm glad this year is half over and looking forward to the next half. It's certainly been challenging for each and every one of us. I appreciate each of you that are wearing masks and doing your part. This too shall end, and we're going to see better times. We're just going to have to get through some of this a little bit longer. So I do believe all of these statistics really have to be looked at in the lens of a very micro level. I mean, for me, I draw a 1 mile circle and look at what's going on. If I'm going to compare Woodland Heights, I just compare to Woodland Heights, or I just compare things zoned to Harvard Elementary or River Oaks Elementary, or things 5 minutes from the medical center, or any of those sort of things. You can gauge the front of the woodlands compared to the back of the woodlands. There is a difference. So I think what's most important is that you get with a professional who can look down into the details. But it really is, try and tell my agents, quit looking at sold so much. The thing, when I look at sold data, I'm looking at the difference between list price and sales price, and maybe what is the end price per square foot. Because that's telling me how much room of negotiation is. But you do have to compare, did they start off unrealistically? But like I say, if I'm looking at $400,000 to $600,000, the price, sometimes it's just as much over as it is under. So if it's 585 and they take 590, that's statistically interesting as being at 615 and taking 610. I'm not seeing the huge gaps in the pricing, in the price ranges 400 to 900 or something. But really, it's not what's sold, it's what's on the market. If I'm gonna think about a listing, has a master bedroom down and a swimming pool, I'm gonna go look how many other listings within 2 miles or that area or that subdivision or that school has a master bedroom down, and a swimming pool, because that's really what you're looking for. If someone doesn't want a master bedroom down and they only want to be on the same bedroom with the kids, then you need to go compare 4 bedrooms with all the bedrooms up in that certain size range. So, try and look at it on a very micro level, because that's really what I think is the biggest impact of the sale of a home. What else does someone have to choose for? I have buyers that I was out with on Friday, and the same thing. They found a great house. It was not our listing. It was a great house, but they want to know, can we find that same great house, zoned to this elementary school? And given just, I believe, a brief amount of time, I believe that yes, another house will pop up that they're in a very nice price range, and they'll be able, if that's important to you, then yes, be willing to wait 2 or 3 weeks. And I do believe that it exists. I have no reason to believe there wouldn't be a $1.5 million house zoned to Harvard Elementary that comes on the market over the next 30 days. There's no reason to think that doesn't exist. It may not be a $600,000 house that's 3 bedroom that's zoned to Harvard Elementary, but for $1.5 million, there is a 3 or 4 bedroom house, probably with a garage apartment, that's zoned to Harvard Elementary. So you don't have to buy the one not zoned to Harvard Elementary if that's important to you. Maybe that's not important to the next person. So I think looking at inventory is really the place to always stay focused. Even if you're selling a house, it doesn't take much for you to go look at the inventory and say, what am I competing with? And often for me, I go and say, in the marketplace, these are going to sell first before this one does. And that generally is true, even though there are always some outlying factors. But inventory is really the name of the game. So with that, I don't know if anyone has any questions. I don't think there was anything on the chat today. 4th of July, holiday weekends tend to be slower. I wouldn't see any great boost of real estate numbers over July 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. I think most people also have some pent-up frustration of needing to get outdoors, and whether they go to a beach or the lake or their backyard or a friend's swimming pool. I think you're going to see people take a little break for the 4th of July weekend. I intend to do the exact same thing. But then I think July is going to be better than a normal July. July is typically a slow month for us inside the 610 loop, beltway sort of thing, because we're not as kid oriented as we used to be. And so I think you're going to see pretty good narrowing of the deal. I do believe sales, the headlines is going to be that it's going to be down, because I just don't think there's any way with the less inventory that you could possibly be up over last year. So the headline for the rest of the year is going to be sales down 15%. Look for the bright lining. Last month, when sales were down, new home sales were up 25%, because those were the homes that were easiest to sell in the middle of a pandemic. So that's pretty good. If you're a home builder or an investor or have a piece of land and you're selling 25% more new homes than you sold 1 year ago, which was the best year in the history of the real estate market, then maybe it's a good time to invest in new construction that could come online 9 months or 12 months from now. So that's a silver lining that you're looking for. And that's what we continue to look at. So I do think health and safety of homes is foremost. So the cleaner, the crisper, the whiter they are, which has been a trend we've seen for the last couple of years, the more important those things are for consumers that are looking into the marketplace today. So keep all that in mind. We will talk to you again very soon. Thank you for watching today, either live or at a later time. And like I say, please reach out to your realtor and look to them for guidance during these unprecedented times. Thank you so much. And we really appreciate you being here today.